I am here today with Tim Peggs. I'm Ron Rodgers, and we're doing a new podcast together. We're starting something fresh here. I had thought about, after a meeting that I was in, Tim, I'll give you the background a little bit. I know I sent you a message on Facebook to kind of explain it a little bit, but I was in a meeting with a bunch of traditional songwriters. I'm a traditional songwriter, and some of them started kind of poking fun a little bit at AI. And I think one of the things that the musicians, well, just people in general, I think that we tend to poke fun at things that we don't understand, because it's our easiest form of dismissal. Like, I'm not for that, so whatever, it's weird, I'm not going to do it, and I'm one of those people that gets curious in moments like that. So I was like, well, what does a person, what motivates somebody? I know what motivates me to write my music, but I don't know what motivates an AI artist or an AI songwriter or anything like that. So I wanted to invite somebody on the podcast, and my goodness, just meeting you, it was kind of like hitting a home run on the first at bat.
That's good. And it's really weird that you just call me an AI artist. That's just sounds weird.
It's unusual. It's unusual, but it's all unusual.
But I guess that's what it is.
Yeah. And it's all, because it's such uncharted territories. So I'll open it up for you. Tell me a little bit about you and how you got to this point in your journey.
Yeah. So I served for 32 years in the Royal Air Force, left 4 or 5 years ago to a big hole, really, if I'm perfectly honest. It's a long time to be in the military, and I would say the word I probably use is I was institutionalized. But I was constantly surrounded by like-minded people, and that transition to civilian life I found very difficult. You live on a married quarter patch in housing with other like-minded people. You go to work with them, you socialize with them. And all of a sudden, coming back into civilian life, it's very, very different. People are not sociable. They tend not to speak to you as much. They don't really get you. We've got quite warped senses of humor, as I'm sure you'll know from your time in the military, very dark humor. And they don't always get us. And I felt quite isolated, kind of lost my way for a while. And that went on for probably about 2 or 3 years. And it kind of peaked towards the back end of last year, where I was going through a really, really tough time. And I almost got to the point where I nearly made a very, very foolish decision. And I thought at that time, and my wife recognized it, she's seen it building up, and she said, you need to go and get some help. And I'm a stubborn Northern Englishman. And if you know from that side of it, we're very working class, if you like, and we're stubborn. Men are meant to be men, and men aren't supposed to be weak and ask for help and be vulnerable. But I needed some help. I was in a really dark place. And as part of that, I went to therapy for a few sessions. That's really, really helped me a lot. And it's helped me to break that cycle. But at the time when I was going through really my darkest periods, I was experiencing really, really lucid dreams. And I guess that was driven by anxiety and depression. But one of those dreams I remembered so vividly that I woke up at about 6 a.m. in the morning, forced myself to write down the words of this song and this harmony that was in my head. I've never written a song before. I have no idea why this song was bouncing around my head, but it was, and I wrote it down. And I shared that on one of the other Facebook groups called Dull Men's Club. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's got about 1.5 million, 3 million members, whatever it is now. It's big. And I just said, look, I had this weird dream. And then someone suggested pushing it through and say, look, try and put it into it, make a song from it. And I poo-pooed the idea to start with, because this is going to be rubbish, isn't it, if I try and do this? And the first couple of kind of attempts or different applications didn't work very well. It was pretty awful, if I'm perfectly honest. And then someone suggested push it through this app called Suno, and I was just blown away with the results. It can build a song with harmonies, choruses, backing vocals, different types of genres. You can plug the same lyrics in. You can prompt it to do things. You can get it to play specific chords. It is just the opportunities. I didn't understand it all, but you can literally just not even put your lyrics in. You can tell it, write me a song about XYZ, and it will write a song and it will generate lyrics. Not very good. It's not very good at that yet. AI is not very good at lyric writing. But what I found is very quickly, and I'm talking within maybe 5 or 10 seconds, you've got a song there that you can then start to tinker around with and mess around with, and maybe change the genre or the speed of it, slow it up, slow it down, speed it up. And I was just blown away with it. And I found that I had quite a lot to say, actually. And I think in the last 3 months or so, I've probably written 40 or 50 songs.
That's incredible.
I've got a lot to get rid of, and it's been really therapeutic for me, and it's a release. And I'm happier now than I have been for a long time because of that. That's what AI music has given me.
Right on. What a huge testimony. There's a lot of things there that you and I have in common, you know, in that I spent a significant number of years in the service as well and struggled with transitioning back to civilian life. So I relate to you there. Also, you said that your first couple attempts at writing a song, it wasn't that good. That's songwriting in general. We've all been through there. We've all wrote a terrible song a time or three. So I still write terrible ones today. And you know, those ones only get heard by my ears and then they wind up in the bin. But, you know, there's a lot of similarities there. And I think it's really cool to hear someone that's using the AI model say that it's a therapeutic process, because so many songwriters talk about songwriting as my therapy. So, you know, you have a lot to say, and it does give you that opportunity to get that out of you.
Yeah. And I've never been able to have that opportunity before. I've tried, but if you haven't got the skills, if you haven't got the voice, you can't. God didn't give me with those skills, unfortunately. It's given me a platform that I would never have had. I mean, I'm releasing an album on Spotify next week.
That's incredible.
That's how wild it's got. And I don't care, you know, you talk about being therapeutic. I don't care if no one listens to it, but maybe one or two people will. Maybe one or two people will resonate with some of the lyrics that are in there. Maybe someone will hear one of the songs I've written about depression and maybe pick up that phone and speak to their friend that they haven't spoken to for a while. And maybe that phone call will be enough to stop them tipping over the edge. And maybe I'll never know that, and it doesn't matter.
Right?
It's more for me.
That's awesome, though, that you're releasing an album on Spotify. You also shared with me in a Facebook message that you're a finalist in a songwriting contest specifically for AI songwriters. Can you tell me more about that?
Yeah, so sure. So a bit like yourself, if you talk about that kind of entrepreneurship, there's a few people setting up this particular gent who's on the Suno Facebook page. He's now set up an AI radio station, and as part of that, I guess he's trying to engage with it and build an audience up. As part of that, he started a competition. He asked people to send songs in, created 4 categories, and I sent my song in, and amazingly, it's won the category, and it's now into the final, which voting takes place this week. So we'll see where that goes next week. So there's myself and 3 other songs in the final battling against each other. So if I'm just happy with where it's gone so far. I'm just happy to get to that group stage, to be honest. Never mind winning it.
Yeah, that's awesome. So it kind of it makes me laugh, because you know you don't think about AI being a form of like radio or even streaming radio, you know. So I have a saying that I've used for a long time. There's an ass for every seat, right? And I think that this is another example of that. Is that if you put the chair out, somebody's going to sit in it, right?
Yeah.
So, and in this particular case, a lot of people chose to sit in those chairs and compete, and you're a rising star. So that's really cool.
I think really that we talked a bit about polarizing opinion, and maybe we've got to be careful that we don't flood the market with a lot of quite rubbish AI music. I think that's probably what we've got to be mindful of. But there's some really rubbish authentic music out there as well. Let's be honest. Let's look at the charts, for example. They're not what they used to be when I was. Well, I go back to the 80s. Say I'm a little bit older than you, I think. But we haven't got the variety of music. I don't think we've had a band in the top 40 in the UK for something like 20 or 25 years.
Wow,
that's crazy. That's wild. And that's how much music has changed over the years.
Yeah. So, you know, it's I got to think about how I want to say this, because I don't want to offend anybody by saying it, but you mentioned it's a polarizing conversation. It really is, and I heard a guy say, the story behind a song, when the songwriter tells that story, whether it's like a songwriter's night or a writer's round or something like that, they tell a little bit of that story and you kind of get drawn into it, and a couple of people started to kind of poke fun a little bit and say like, oh yeah, well, I got out the Mac Mini and started typing in a couple of prompts and, and this is what it made. And I do think that there's a lot more behind it. I agree with you that music tends to be a little bit formulaic these days, and it's kind of
and artificial. Let's use that word right now.
The what?
Let's use that word now. Artificial.
Artificial.
What is synthetic music?
Manufactured. Yeah, I think that's a good way to say it.
Synthetic drums, synthetic keyboards, auto-tune. It's already kind of here. This is just the next step in that evolution for me.
Right. And I think it is a tool now. And the biggest thing I think is it's got to be ethical use and it's got to be disclosed use. I think the biggest thing that songwriters are freaked out about is the fact that it is producing high quality songs that are competitive.
Yeah.
So to say this is how I make my living and something is coming to interrupt or disrupt rather, that can drive fear, but at the same time, I think that you've got to look at it, realistically. We've got a Beatles song that was released last year that was 4 original Beatles, and we've only got 2 of them right now. So, AI made that possible. Randy Travis, country music artist right now. He lost his voice, 10, 15, maybe even 20 years ago, and hasn't sung a note. And through the use of AI and a very skilled singer, they were able to put Randy Travis back out there as an artist, and he just released his 2nd song now with AI. So it is doing some pretty incredible things. And it's, I would consider both of those to be ethical uses of it. But I think where the fear is people are thinking, oh, well, I'll write this whole album and I'll let everybody think that, it was me and it was, this and not disclose the fact that it was AI. So as long as everybody's above the bar, at least in my opinion, as long as everybody's above the bar and you know what you're getting, nobody's doing any disservice.
And I'm very honest with mine. So all my lyrics, I write all my lyrics. There's no AI generate lyrics at all. I just use the AI to wrap the melody and the tune around it.
You're not a fan of the Neon Shadows lyrics that it always generates?
I mean, it's not there yet, but as AI learns, and AI is very good at creating, and as that database gets bigger, it's going to get better. And we're just at the beginning of it right now.
Yeah, I agree with that. So I've dabbled with it a little bit because, again, like I said, I get curious. I just want to know what's working, what's not working, what's available, what's out there. And I think I've heard enough pros talk about AI and how they use it as a tool. They're not relying on it as a crutch. They're using it as a tool. I've heard people say, I'll take a paragraph and I'll put it in there and I'll say, say this better for me. How do I get this emotion across or this statement across, but not 75 words? Do it in 7 words.
Yeah.
And
I've done the same.
Yeah, so it'll help tailor that in, and I've even heard people say, actually, in that same meeting, there was a gentleman that said he has a pro writer in his stable that hasn't had a cut in a while, and he's running a little low on funds. So what he's doing is he's writing his songs, lyrics and melody, running the guitar vocal in through Suno and allowing it to cover versions of his song and create the actual track that he's out pitching to publishers. So I thought that was rather unique too, because I don't know what the copyright laws are in the UK, but in the US, you can only copyright your lyrics and your melody being.
I think copyright laws are a mess because there doesn't seem to be any kind of international translation across boundaries, and what might be law in one country may not be law in another, and it's just a mess. And I don't know what the answer is to that, but it's going to be a tricky to resolve, that one. But yeah.
So one thing I thought was kind of unique. I want to transition to talk a little bit about your process. You said
Sure.
that you write your own lyrics and stuff, and that's awesome. Do you maybe answer this question first? I noticed your album has the same singer the whole way through. How did you make that happen?
Well, I can thank Suno for that. Well, actually, I originally started with a male vocal voice because I wanted to kind of represent me in some way, but it wasn't working, and I wasn't quite sure why it wasn't working. But it wasn't kind of emotional enough, if that makes sense. It wasn't feminine enough, dare I say? You still there, Ron? You froze a minute.
Yeah, I'm here. You good?
Yeah, you're good. Yeah, it just froze for a second. So I found it wasn't really quite emotional enough, and I find it easier to convey my personal feelings through a female persona, if that makes sense, than a male one.
Or Google issues.
Yeah, I'm not sure it's your end or mine.
All right. So, anyways, okay. The female angle.
Yeah. So I tried originally with kind of a male bluesy vocal, that kind of sound genre. Didn't work, and then a friend who I work with said, "Oh, I really like folk music. Try it with that kind of genre." I tried that. Came out really well. It kind of conveyed the message in a more kind of emotional, personal way, if you like. And then with Suno, you can basically create, if you get a vocal that you like, you can create a persona from that vocal, and then use that persona in every song that you then create beyond that point.
Okay,
so that's where the female bit came from.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. So it's kind of cool to see that, you know, that folks can take the creations and go off and make kind of the ghost artist or you know, something to that effect. Like, this is not me, but it is me. You know, that's cool.
Yeah. But yeah, and I called her Alice Tanner, and purely because again, into ChatGPT, give me some names that can be made from the words artificial intelligence, and one of those was Alice Tanner.
All right.
So there you go.
I like it. So you said that you write your own lyrics. Are you you're kind of writing beforehand and then plugging them in, or you're
Yeah. So something will come to me. So let me give an example of a song I've just been writing the last few days. So I shall talk a little bit maybe about my inspirations, about the kind of music I used to listen to, and kind of my kind of heroes and heroine. Maybe that'll give you an idea of where kind of my inspirations come from. So my number one favorite artist of all time, without doubt, and I know you guys haven't had a great deal of exposure to her over there in the States, Kate Bush. I know you'll know a little bit now from Stranger Things recently. She is a phenomenal artist and a phenomenal songwriter. Her first album, The Kick Inside, was released when she was 18. Most of the songs on that album she wrote when she was 13 and 14. It's just incredible to be able to think that a young woman at 13, 14 can write songs with such emotion and power and meaning at that age.
Yeah.
And I followed her for a very, very long time. And one of her songs was basically used a metaphor for a broken vase to be basically her mother dying. That was the metaphor. So one of the songs that I've used recently was about a discarded old sock and being cast away. And then I kind of evolved that to cast away. So that could be someone on a desert island, thrown overboard. And I kind of build the lyric. It starts from something very small, and then it just grows. And I say, where can I grow that song into? What's similar to that? Can I use metaphors that might kind of grow that song a little bit more? So that's one idea, really. But they come from all kinds of places. I can be watching something on TV or reading something in the news, and I'll go, I could write a song about that. That'd be a good song to write about. And it can be just a simple thing. And I'll just try, and if it makes sense, it makes sense. If it doesn't, it goes in the bin.
Right. Right. Well, it's fascinating to see how many similarities there are right now because, the creatives were always, that you have your antennas up all the time, right? You're always
Mhm.
looking for, well, that was a fun turn of phrase, or,
Yeah,
there was a unique moment that happened, or, I grew up in a town that was at the top of a yellow brick road. So, like there's the follow the yellow brick road
yeah,
and so, so like it's always around you. The song titles are there, the concepts are there. You just got to be able to answer the phone when it calls,
yeah,
right? So the
yeah.
similarities are really wild to see. Um, have you ever reversed the process at all? Have Suno kind of create you a track and then figure out your top line over it, like write kind of over what's already
No,
there?
no, it's always lyrics first. Always
Okay.
lyrics first. Try and create a structure in the song within that, chorus, pre-chorus, just a bridge in there, and then plug it into Suno and see what pops out the other end. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And sometimes that particular word didn't work. Maybe it's 3 syllables and it needs to be 2. It doesn't quite fit right. So you got to think, and that's what Suno allows you to do, is that it allows you, and I think true for authentic musicians as well, it allows you to do that tinkering very quickly and very inexpensively. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
how much would that cost you to do that tinkering in the studio? It would cost a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of effort, and you can do it in a matter of seconds before you go into the studio.
Yeah, and that was one of my very first thoughts when I fired a song. I fired a set of lyrics of mine through it, and I was blown away by what it came back with. But I was like, the first couple of iterations, I wasn't crazy about what it sent back to me.
Love
So
that word, by the way.
what's that?
That's the title of my song. Iterations.
Oh, yes, it is. Yes, it is. You're award winner, or almost award winner. You're finalist. So we'll
That's the
find
one,
out.
yeah.
We'll do an update if to see if you won.
Yeah, next week.
But what I noticed was, I wasn't too crazy about the first couple of returns that it gave me,
Mhm.
and I just kept going until I got one. And then the problem that I had was, when I heard it, and I was like, "That's it. That's the one. That's the way it's supposed to be done."
Yeah, yeah.
And then I said, "All right, well, how am I going to rewrite this?" Because I didn't want to hijack what Suno had written for me, because again, the lyrics were mine. I've had them forever. I just never put a melody to it. And so now that I've heard it this way, though, I went, I can't put the genie back in the bottle, So now every time I sit down to try to rewrite that song, I immediately gravitate back towards what Suno
Because
created.
that's the one. That's the one that resonates with you.
Because it's the one, right? So I think I finally submitted to the fact that one song for me is going to be co-written by Suno and the artificial intelligence, because I cannot figure out a better way to do it.
Yeah.
But it made me think when I went through that process, there have been times when I've sent a song away for a demo and I didn't like what I got back. So it's either spend the money again to have them make some changes to it and give me a different vibe of the track, or put it in the bin and revisit at another time, or never come back to it. So the ability to your point, the ability to save money and hear different versions of the same song to really pick the one that you like the most. What I thought was interesting is you said that you can shift syllables and not lose the remainder of the work. That was something that I haven't jumped in deep enough to know if you can actually like do an in-paint
So I think that was the latest version of a couple of weeks ago. They've really updated the replace function. So I think it has to be at least 3 seconds long, but let's say just a line of a verse. So let's say you don't like a particular word because it's got 3 syllables and it's a bit forced at the end.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to replace it with a 2-syllable or a shorter word. So you can do that now, and it keeps everything else either side of that line in place.
That's pretty incredible.
It's really good. Yeah.
Wow. Well, I'm certainly understanding a lot more now why people might be a little scared of this, because especially if they understand it better than I mean, you've got a much firmer grasp on it than I do, and your ability to talk through it proves that.
I mean, just remember as well, I'm a complete novice here as well, so I have no musical background. Imagine what, a really talented musician songwriter can do with this. If I can do this as a complete novice, imagine what someone like yourself can do. Someone who knows what they're doing.
Well, and what I think is funny too is there are lyricists out there. It's a part of the songwriting community. There are some guys and gals that do not play an instrument, and they focus just on writing lyrics. And actually, one of the guys that I follow, he has made it a point to say when he was starting out in songwriting, he didn't want to invest the time into learning how to produce a track. He didn't want to put the time into writing melodies. He wanted to focus on being a world-class lyricist. So that's what he spent his time and his energy on. So, this AI revolution, you can take somebody like yourself that's got a lot to say, and you can write the lyrics, and your AI kind of sort of just becomes your co-writer that's going to come up with that melody for you.
Yeah.
And it's allowing you to create something from nothing.
And quickly,
and quickly. That's
and inexpensively, yeah.
Do you have like a quality control process that you follow too, or it's just I like this and I don't like that?
It's my ear, I think, is what it is. So long as really kind of my whole kind of thinking, if you like, is it's about storytelling. So long as the message is conveyed and it's got a nice melody to it, that kind of ticks both boxes for me. But it's got to fit. I'll give you another example, maybe. So I wrote a song about the day that me and my wife met, and it started out as a kind of soppy love song and quite a slow melody, and the words were right, but it needed a bit more oomph. So I tried pushing it basically through kind of a punk pop type thing, and just to give it some more kick and attitude, because that kind of exemplifies my wife, if you like. She's feisty little woman, but love her to bits. But she's got attitude, and what that song needed was attitude, and push that through a different genre, and all of a sudden, within 5 or 6 attempts, that's the one. It's much better. It's that says it. And although the words are the same, the whole tempo changes the mood of the song, doesn't it?
Yeah. That's wild.
So to answer your question, really, it's the ear. It really, my quality control. I mean, obviously, I'll share it with family and friends and say, "What do you think about this?" And they'll give me honest feedback. But really, it's does that sound right? Is the message getting through? Would I listen to it on the radio? I guess. Would I listen to it in the car? I guess that's my quality control. Would I skip it? If I'm skipping if I'm skipping it for the next track, then yeah, it's gonna go in the bin.
Right on. Well, this has been enlightening. Do you have anything else you want to talk about?
I think we've got lots more to talk about, haven't we? But maybe that's for the next one.
Well, I definitely want to have you back. I want to chat more. I want to follow up to see if you won the contest.
Yeah. So I should find out next Wednesday.
Next Wednesday. Okay.
Should be in. Yeah.
Cool. Well, I will definitely keep in touch, and I've got that other thing that I was telling you about before we met. I want to run that past somebody before I talk about it, but I think that would be a really cool thing to dive into a little bit. And
I'd really like to. I'd really like to talk more about and open up and get more men involved with talking about their mental health and getting help for it, because we're rubbish at it, aren't we? Let's be honest.
Mm-hmm.
We're not very good at it.
No.
We need to get better at it, and we need to look after each other more, and we need to have conversations like this and just talk about it and help each other. Really, that's the whole reason for doing this, is to try and help each other.
Right. Yeah, I agree. And man, even the use of creativity to help overcome that, it's a proven method, and the fact that AI opens that door, to give you that exit from that moment, and get you some relief, and at the same time, you've got something to show for it on the other side that you're proud of, and you say, hey, check this out, listen to this.
Including this. I mean, if you'd have said to me 6 months ago, you're going to be sat in your conservatory speaking to a musician from the States about writing music, I would have thought you were absolutely insane to be even suggesting that. But here we are.
Right on. Well, Tim, I enjoyed this conversation, and I definitely want to have more conversations. And who knows, maybe we can do like a 3-way co-write, me, you, and Suno.
Yeah, that'd be sweet. I'll write a song, you perform it. How about that?
That'll work.
That'd be great.
Work.